How's it going, everybody? Let me see. Just that. Uh, I'm just gonna have to run this back if this doesn't work. Okay, so we're here talking about again. Second take on the ideas of influence, power, impulse, and the other one I can't remember. I'm sorry. But these are just general ideas. I just watched this. I was hearing in the past about this thing known as the Momo Challenge. I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was just like those because I definitely hopped off the grid in terms of not social media. I've done an ebb and flow of just social media, but I've seen just like as I was scrolling through Facebook and such, I saw this thing called the Momo Challenge. Now I was just thinking it was similar to like other challenges, the Fire Challenge, the Ice Bucket Challenge, a bunch of other challenges. So for me, it was just like, well, that's kind of like the young man's trend, and especially given just that's something I want to talk about later, just the information age. But I just figured that was them, and I've seen other dumb things that were just caustic to caustic to I was checking to the young populace. So I just forgot about it. And I check out the Philip DeFranco show. Just a pinch. I watched like half of it, and I was able to just take a look at what he was talking about. He was saying a lot of stuff isn't really validated. That's not the right word, but they weren't really like labeled as fact. The claims, and it just made me think like in addition to um this famous YouTuber, and someone who's just as famous, I may suggest. I don't know about any margin. I know both of them are pretty well known in the YouTube community. Shane Dawson, yeah, Shane Dawson, um, and how he had the criticisms of Chuck E. Cheese's pizza and stuff like that, and he and let me see. Sorry, actually, want to do it quick because I want to cite this person. She had a good analysis of named Spill had a good analysis of this of Shane Dawson, the power of influence, and how even though his claims got a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people thinking about it. Um, it was very interesting to see how that viral video about the pizza, it spilled over to the real world instead of just being a theory and critique in regards to that. It actually became slander, became something that was not ill intention, but something that was a critique, an analysis of a YouTuber's past concerns. And so it's very interesting to see how that particular idea or mindset in regards to the product of some uh like product of a kid's fun time, and the fun time that involves just eating pizza, eating like their food, and just showing the potential sanitary side effects. But a lot of that remained in a very thick cloud of gray, where it was some people may have done it, some people haven't done it, some people actually have better standards, some didn't have standards. So it was just it wasn't a clear answer, and it's very interesting in this information age. We are in this cancel culture. We're very quick to just stomp people out, very quick to get clear answers, and it's not really a clear answer. Like as I've seen from comments that not from my own, but from other YouTubers regarding the same topic, is that um, it's a franchise, so there's different locations, different buildings by different owners and different standards and stuff like that. And it was very interesting to to just see not just former employees who had mixed reviews, mixed ideas, but also just current owners, current employees, and the like. And for me, I was always a big fan of the pizza. Like the pizza, I eat it when I was young. Um, But it's so interesting how even something even considered a theorizing can have a a real life approach to someone's actual livelihood. It made me see this video in regards to this creator, the guy who voiced Jar Jar Binks. Uh, they say he almost committed suicide because of the media backlash, which reminds me of the lady who played Rose in The Last Jedi. I believe she cut off her her Twitter, deactivated her Twitter or removed it because of the backlash. Boyega, I don't know if he's done that, but it's uh, it's so interesting, especially in this age of technology, that we want to be vigilantes of some sort, and how we have such an impulsive response in regards to just figure in regards to calling people out and saying this isn't right without any due process, any investigation, any research, any bouts of gaining information and figuring out standards. There's not really much specialty in regards to the culture these days, and I mean American culture as a whole. Um, there's a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, which is kind of interesting. Like it reminded me of this guy Legal Eagle when he said, because he's a specialist. Is would Lord be regarded as a specialist of the law? I'm not entirely sure, but I do think that when they say in the courtroom, only professionals, sorry, only experts are allowed to give their opinion in the courtroom, and I think that's very important because they're they're masking their opinion, or rather, they're masking their profession in the the projection of their opinion. So, and of course, I'm sure they make their statements very clear to say, hey, in my professional opinion, I think it's X, Y, and Z, and blah 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 blah. But I think that's very important, especially in terms of the law, in terms of figuring out what is what claims are in terms of doubt and which ones are very close, very extremely close to fact, and which ones are inconclusive. Um, And so, given these ideas of research, given these ideas of influence, and you have people, especially on YouTube, which is kind of surprising because these are grassroots entertainers for our generation. I like to think, and you have these have people are who are very big fans of the YouTube platform. And again, it's a platform, but platforms is not just a platform. It is its own entity that worries more so about itself. It does its job to mediate and to handle the situations as best as it can as a platform that is supposed to be responsible. But people don't make platforms for free or selflessly. They do it with them in mind. And I'm not saying there's a gender or anything like that, but I am saying that priorities are done. It's not like they're not capable of good or evil. It's just that a bias has to be understood. Unless you are promoting your own platform and you're your own head of bias, uh, YouTube is where you potentially make your dollars or entertainment from. So they're the people who have the say so and the reasons for that say so. Um, but that's disregarding this culture of technology. YouTube is just one social media tool, platform, thing that just exists as a placeholder for something completely different. Whether it be YouTube, I'm sorry, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, uh, whatever. And so, just thinking about in regards to like these Star Wars actors and actresses who didn't fit the narrative or coincide with the narrative in live action, um, and you have a lot of these critics, these so-called critics, you know, and it just makes me wonder, like in terms of in regards to the criticisms that may not even be substantially backed by any profession of sorts. It just makes me wonder what's going to be a standard? What's the standard in terms of giving out actual balanced and proper criticism? Given like we have these people who have committed crimes, the R. Kelly's, the Bill Cosby's, if you say, um, the Harvey Weinstein's, the whoever, the people who are committing evils and are doing it under our nose, or even the people who have done it and is very apparent. What I'm saying is more so, who are we to quickly roll up our sleeves and play Batman for a day, or play Batman from a keyboard and start assaulting people without giving the evidence, uh, or even taking in regard the narrative, or taking in into factor the due diligence. I just wondered to myself, why do we put ourselves in that position that we feel like, and I think maybe it's because it's easy. It's very easy. It's easy to start a campaign on uh, Twitter, have Twitter activism. It's very easy to get behind somebody and get behind something that's a knee jerk response, or even just something that's very volatile in nature, like nature's like violence, sexual assault. It's very easy to get behind those things, but it's very hard to just stop for a quick moment and say, "This is bad. Let's do our due diligence to see if this is true." And it's bothersome because I think, because I don't think this came out of nowhere. I think partially maybe this came from the errors of our forefathers, where we were very quick to say, let's stop and get the facts, but we never really got the facts. We just said, let's stop. This is questionable. And again, I like to, it's not blaming, it's not just to blame the people before us. It's the fact that just pointing out we're flawed. We're very flawed. And so we need a very balanced and smarter and forthright response to just deal with things in a very properly and timely way. But not everybody's quick to do that. Not everybody's quick to be patient and figure things out. Excuse me. So I wonder, apart from this whistleblowing, call out, cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, how do we navigate and evaluate what enters the social sphere? It makes me think about social conventions, simple social conventions without the internet, even before the internet existed, where we had communication and flows of information, where if it wasn't in a book, it was just told word of mouth. And then how um, these small misnomers of information, or even just, he said, she said, just spreads, in this age of information, I mean, age of internet, the information moves extremely fast to the point where it has to be especially gritty, especially dirty for it to even slow down a moment to a moment's pace. Because I mean, it sucks. It just seems like we're very desensitized, and it makes me wonder. Similarly with the movie Ready Player One, where the person, he their virtual reality, the Oasis, he had people to stop, and he turned it off for Wednesday. And now you can get into the ideas of, okay, what's proper, the government controlling us or us making our decisions ourselves, which makes me get into the black community in regards to movies like Black Panther. Black Panther, from what I could see when I seen the trailer, it was gonna be a particular thing, and I didn't expect the movie to be so entrenched in not just in representation of the culture, but just the presentation of it. Apart from the cultural aspects and the filmmaking aspects, it showed us a perspective of the older generation making a decision, the newer generation having to take up that mantle and having to take responsibility for the older generation's miseducated actions, or just decision making at the time, to recalibrate or realign those decisions for today in a newer forward pattern. So I don't want to say correct their decision making, but to simply to analyze it and to adjusted for today's time, for today's people, for today's needs and such. And so it just makes me want to, given that, I think it's a very good example for us to take note of how do we handle things today. You know, instead of being so impassioned, let's be a little more intelligent in regards to these issues. And it's not. And I think another thing we are looking at is we look at our heroes, our civil rights heroes, and we kind of think, why can't we be like them? And to me, I like to think their situation was a very good motivation to change, to not just change, but to react, respond. I don't think currently we're in a space to respond unless something legitimately erroneous happens to society. And I'm always saying that because I feel like I don't want it to happen. I really wish we could change. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's what I want to go back to. Black Panther is, and even Black Klansman is disguising morality and making that entertaining. You know, to disguise our entertainment. And it's kind of bothersome because figuratively, to me, it seems like the Cold War, but it's like the Cold War of entertainment. So it's just um how do we figure it? I think part of how we figure this out is having intelligent filmmakers, and to me, that's one of the culprits I like to think because they control the media. Is to have our these newer, or even as J. Cole would say, middle child, the people who are from the old generation, people from newer generation, the people in the middle, they're little bro and big bro at the same time at once to adjust the narrative and to, in a sense, in our call out culture, to be um not just shock value but just unexpected, to just kind of play with our expectations, because isn't that what we like about magic? They mess around with our expectations, our attention. Isn't that what comedy is about? They play on our expectations and then they pull something from up under us and make a surprise. So I think that'd be a great an intelligent response. You know, not just having so many knee jerk responses, but even if we are going to do that, um, to maybe perhaps check us. You know, and especially in today's social media where it's very me-centered, narcissistic, just self-centered, perhaps it's not good to call out someone who's so absorbed in themselves, but perhaps to trick them. And I know people don't like being tricked, but sometimes you, like for instance, if kids don't like eating their vegetables, maybe you have to play, you know, feed it to them in an entertaining fashion. So in the same way we feed the masses in an entertaining fashion, you know. And I can't, I guess I say this because I'm like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm anti-government, because I'm not, and I understand why our government protects us. But even then, it makes me wonder. Just like with our government in its efforts to protect us, it's almost like the person who's the big brother who's lying to the little brother to protect them. You know, or like the movie Road Bounce with was it Shad Moss and I forget the other guy. I can't remember his name. I didn't want to say Teddy Pendergrass. It's some other fella. I can't remember his name. He was the father. But basically, what he did was he was lying to his son. To he put on a little suit, grabbed his little briefcase, and he went off. And then he figured it out later on. But you know, just to show, like, you know, sometimes we go to great lengths to ensure a false sense of security, I like to think. And it's not, regardless if we think about fiat money society or anything like that, these conventions seem to be false, but I think they're very true. They're just as real as love, and they're just as enforced and concrete as practices of love, practices such as marriage. You know, just because you have a band on your hand, and I don't have one apparently, doesn't mean that it's just metal wrapped around your finger. I think it's personally, it's a symbol, you know, and it's a concept of eternal commitment to one another. And hopefully, those undertones of value, love, respect, commitment, loyalty, and stuff like that are also integrated in that fashion of commitment. But given just these, our society, our government, things of that nature, I think optimistically in terms of my government, but who doesn't, who lives in their own nation, unless we have the freedom to express that. But um it's a scary thing for somebody in opposition to the ideals of America to have any influence. That goes to my next topic: influence, in regards to, especially to that Shane Dawson and to the lady Spill, the YouTuber Spill, where she says that his I mean, I'm not being monetized, conspiracy to the video. I meant to potential conspiracy video in regards to Chuck E. Cheese's pizza and the slices. She said that it was in especially in regards to their cease and desist, it was very close to being defamation of their character, of their company's character, of the brand that they of their quality of pizza. Because if it's as he have suspected in his theory, that is actually uh, reused pizza slices, then that's defamation of the character, especially if it's not true. But given that he has such a great influence, that sways people's opinions. And when I think about if I think about the society as a whole, society is just is a collective group of people with customs and things of that nature. So if you sway a great group of people to do a certain thing, and then it's a risk. It's not good or bad. It's a risk. I like to think. So, given it's a risk, it's almost important, pertinent. I don't know if that's a proper word for it, but pertinent for companies, big organizations who are being targeted, um, government, and I can understand why they take a handle of certain individuals who try to sway the voice of the people whom the government is serving or protecting, as they say. And I put those in quotes because it's like could be taken subjectively, but let's just hope optimistically it is under protection. It's for like not absolute protection, but as best protection as they can. So, given that, um, these people they bring a risk. Um, they don't bring guarantees, and even with business, as far as I can tell, they try their best to maintain a sense of a sense of, I don't want to say absolutism, or even I'll say a high degree of certainty. So they try their best. So whether you get investors to fund your business or whatever like that, the idea is almost like they play society, they trick society, they market to society, do whatever they have to do to society to continually fund them, and they convince us, where they give us a service, a product, or whatever, that pouring into their company, business, whatever is a good thing. So maybe they'll give you, like for instance, we sell bottled water. Bottled water. Think about that. Bottled water. Water that comes, that's, what is it? 1% of fresh water on the earth, and some of it is bottled, and you have to pay a price. And then of course, you say the services and all that junk. But even with springs, that's fresh water. Um, but what I mean by that is just like the practices of business, where it's just, and not specifically because I don't have a degree in those business practices, but I can have a very general idea, a good idea about how businesses are done, or rather, businesses how they are done in respect to society. So, given all that, um, it would make sense for businesses to try their best to ensure customer loyalty. And to me, I like to think that's far more important, far more valuable, have far more consideration than just merely making money. Because if I make $1, that's fine. But if I make $365 because I've ensured your loyalty to pay me every day. That's far more important. So the character, or rather, how people see these entities like Chuck E. Cheese or the government, I think they're very important, very important. And so, given that these entities require the loyalty of his patrons, citizens, whatever you like to dub them, the people that they're serving under, they are servicing themselves under, or servicing themselves for, is very important to keep that in mind and to make sure your competition isn't a potentially risky one. And it would make sense given persons like Shane Dawson or even persons like Philip DeFranco, um, to not seem risky. And I don't mind people being risky, you know. Um, but sometimes when you think about it, these risky fellows who maybe exist, maybe not really exist, they're for the most part, I like to think they're out for just simply living, existing, having a good relationship between them and their subscribers, their patrons, and so they simply are in their own personal values, perhaps looking for truth, looking for a sense of certainty, perhaps a sense of just simply information gathering and information presentation. I think I remember even before the internet, they had the news on our television. They were responsible for um, cleaning up the info, giving it to us in a responsible fashion. Now it's been replaced, almost replaced, borderline replaced by some of our new newscasters today. But one great difference, especially in regards to our loyalty, is the fact that these people were trained. These people went, what, 4 plus 4 years or something like that, um, and they had training to do this. So for me, I would have loved to take on the idea of college and training and just undergoing these things. Uh, But that finances is it. I'm not saying that the college life ain't worth it. I'm just saying the finances for the college life make that pursuit for professionalism that much more harder to pursue, especially with racking up debt, um, trying to see if you can even survive with that debt, um, with your sustainable living. Um, but going back to it, YouTube isn't always filled with professionals, and I think even the most important of YouTubers, they do their due diligence, they do their research, they show some sense of what is it, logos, ethos, pathos, one of them. I always forget them. Um, but given in regards to their their credibility, whichever one it is. I took communications in college. I didn't graduate, sadly. But given their idea of what it means for credibility, they do the due diligence and they prove to us, or at least they give the illusion, I guess you can say illusion, of trust. And they build their relationship of trust. They by following other people who have done the due diligence and have proven it with a piece of paper degree proving it. So another aspect of influence I like to think is the influence over people's livelihood. With cancel culture, where we have the mob mentality of breaking people down, um, it has the great capability of ruining lives, of not only punishing people, but having them remain punished, not punished, repentant, and now reestablished into society, utterly and darn well near permanently discredited to the point where they have no ability to show any redeeming qualities. So, given that, like for instance, going back to the guy who played Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars, I believe, what is it, the first, not chronologically the first, but no, I get confused. Sequentially, the the first, second, and third, Jar Jar Binks, where he I'm sorry, I'm getting totally confused. Is it first, second, and third, or three, four, and six? Three, four, and five. I can't remember. But the impulse of nature of influence just has it not only ruins Twitter accounts, it literally ruins people. And that's something that I really want to talk about is just the nature of these um not web the nature of this culture in which by some influence of themselves, maybe a personal influence, whether it's personal gratification or a personal bout of like you know personal value, like they are very quick to oust somebody and continue to oust them, in which I find that very troublesome because they're not out for judgment. They're out for condemnation. They're not out to say, hey, that's dumb, that's stupid, don't do that. They're out to say, don't ever do that again, and you should, you know, KYS, sadly. Um and to me, that's the strangest thing. Like, is very narcissistic in nature, is very selfish, is like is very it's like it's almost like a kill them all point of view, mindset, where whatever their opposition is or whatever they say, they're not human. They're an object of your aggression, and it's bothersome because it's even in addition to celebrities, they're people. And I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna be starstruck if I ever meet one, but they're people first, And I think we miss out, especially in being retreated from personality. We purely look at information, and then we translate our own personal um convictions onto platforms of information. So like for instance, if I'm on this YouTube platform and I start seeing um Joey's Wall and Crab Company or whatever uh sells fake crabs, and then they people in mass, and I could be like, and I can give you my visual perspective and just all this stuff, and then if I have influence, that's breaking people down. That's a real place, that's a real person, they're having real values, and it's not to use, and maybe it's even to use this influence and things responsibly and wisely, but it's bothersome because with persons like, for instance, Jar Jar Binks, I didn't see. I saw him kind of like forced in at times, but I didn't think him when I first saw it. And my reasons for watching the Star Wars is it's kind of dumb, but I'm glad I watched them. It was pretty interesting. Um, it I didn't find too much of a problem with the character of Jar Jar Binks. I'm glad he's not in it, not to be cruel to the actual voice actor, but I don't think the audience itself understood. And they said it was racist, despite the guy being, what is he, black? But it was like a combination. He was this alien, which is kind of weird. It's really weird because it's this expectation of who's behind the voice actor, you know, and it's weird because we claim something's racist without really doing the due diligence or the research. We make knee jerk responses. Ah, oh, it's racist. Ah, oh, is this? Ah, oh, is that? And I get it. It's based off the past. The past had racial undertones. The past had they had overtly racist things, racist concepts, racist caricatures, racist things, and then for themselves it was just themselves, and it was the craft, and that's what sucks back then, because in their representation of people that weren't them, it was deemed demonic, or even just deemed negative, while themselves were deemed moral, like these positive concepts, moral, um well-to-do, good acting, acting styles, good filmmaking, and et cetera, when the people who weren't in their preference, their social and racial preference, were deemed like just ugly, negative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it wasn't even taking into account the skill, the screenplay, the filmmaking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just sucks because it's like the pendulum swings the other side, where we're not just like we need to take revenge, and I think that's the best way to describe it, because it's a revenge mentality. Is just bothersome because the white man is described or viewed to be a conceptual white man, a conceptual white collective man, when it's not. It's this descendants of white people, and I'm not saying white people don't have ignorance. I'm not a fan of white ignorance or black ignorance, um, but to shut people down based off racial expectations, um, and not even, sadly, not even like personal replacement. Like we just call people out. We don't make any changes personally. We don't make any proactive steps. Like, oh, that seemed racist. Let's make a movie to actually show how it's really done. It's just a lot of talking, a lot of uh, call out culture type things. There's, and I know that, I'm sorry, that sounded a little unintelligible, but it's a lot of talking and not a lot of doing, not a lot of examples. And if a lot of these filmmakers who show diversity, um, are, if they aren't with the culture that they're expressing, then, and maybe they're just passionate about it, maybe they just want a free cash grab. I don't know personally. I don't know these filmmakers. I don't know, but to express this level of disdain for people who don't know any better, and at the same time the irresponsibility of some of these filmmakers who promote these ideas that aren't even authentic, um is bad, because I feel like all these feelings for righteous actions are misplaced. They are sadly misplaced. They're not smart. They're not even rewarding for proper actions. It's just money. It's just knee jerk responses, call out culture, money, and a lot of it is pretty sad, because it shouldn't have to be so. It shouldn't have to be so, what is it, unhealthy. Shouldn't have to be so toxic. That's what I got. Um, my voice is starting to get a little hoarse, so I guess that's it for me right now. It's just if you don't like something, do the due diligence, get the requirements necessary to make a replacement. If you didn't like Jar Jar Binks, make a Star Wars that don't have Jar Jar Binks in it. You know, if you don't understand Jar Jar Binks as a character, if you think it looked racist, um, talk to I don't know, request a video from the voice actor. Um, know the magnitude of this culture, and I guess think before you act, especially those with this influence and power. Think, you know. And I'm not sitting here trying to be judging you from afar. I just say take responsibility for the position you're in, and not to just sit here and throw all these responsibilities like the Pharisees did with people at the time. Jesus was like, you guys aren't even lifting your finger to help people. You're just placing burdens. I'm gonna do that. I guess what I do want is a warning, just like, be careful of that influence you have. Um, you guys could be stars in one moment, and you guys could have a trail of people, trail of sparks behind you, who could ignite in their own stardom, but it's just they're following you. And then if you say this person's bad, they may trail into a meteor and come hurling at somebody's infrastructure, social status, livelihood. And of course, people say that even in regards to people who are even demonic in nature. Um, be responsible and be smart. Not just them, but us too as consumers or subscribers, um, consumers, lay persons, whatever. It's harder. And I think again, part of it is going to be let's make research sexy. Let's make research attractive. Let's make intelligence an interesting thing. And that's probably not going to be done with people of great influence or greater wealth, but it's going to be done with the little guy who will have to be the underdog. And maybe it's going to be me. Maybe it's going to be you. But the change has to come. We need a bit of balance. We're swinging on either end, and there's just so much responses that are knee jerk rather than just like, and I mean impulsive. Um, where we need to be a bit more smarter, a bit more patient, a bit more calmer, a bit more loving, a bit more uh, better overall in our responses to these things that happen, accusations, allegations, or whatever. So that's all I got. You guys take care. God bless you.